It is 6:30 in the morning. The alarm rings. Your eyes are heavy, your body aches, yet your hand reaches automatically for the phone. The screen lights up. Before your feet even touch the floor, your heart is already racing. Emails from work, notifications from bills, news headlines filled with fear. You scroll, even as part of you wishes you had not. The day begins, and it feels less like a fresh start and more like stepping onto a treadmill that never stops. You rush to shower, rush to dress, rush to commute. Traffic hums like 1,000 angry bees. Your coffee cools too fast. Someone cuts you off, and your chest tightens. You grip the steering wheel harder, though you know it solves nothing. At work, the meetings pile up. The deadlines breathe down your neck. You nod while others speak, but inside, you are somewhere else already worrying about the next task, already rehearsing the next conversation. When was the last time you felt fully present in a single moment? When was the last time you simply breathed without the weight of the world pressing down? Evenings offer little refuge. There are errands, chores, family obligations. You sit down, but the mind refuses to sit with you. It replays mistakes, plans tomorrow, worries about the future. Your body may be on the couch, but your mind is scattered across 100 unfinished stories. And when night comes, sleep is shallow, restless. You wake not refreshed, but already tired of tomorrow. This is not only your story. It is the story of millions. People who work hard, love deeply, strive for security, yet still feel empty inside. People who smile on the outside, but quietly wonder, is this all there is? Is life meant to be just this cycle of pressure and exhaustion? You may not say it out loud, but perhaps you feel it. The quiet loneliness in a crowded room. The hunger for meaning when success tastes hollow. The longing for peace in a world that never stops shouting. But here is the question. What if the peace you seek is not far away? What if it is not in a perfect job, a perfect partner, or a perfect future? What if it is already within you, quietly, patiently, for you to notice? There is a wisdom older than nations, older than books. It has guided countless people across centuries who, just like you, were tired of running. It does not demand that you abandon your life, your family, or your work. It only asks that you see differently, to notice what has always been here, beneath the noise. In the coming chapters, you will walk through stories that feel close to your own. Stress, loss, regret, uncertainty, anger, confusion. You will see them not as enemies, but as teachers. And through gentle guidance, you will discover that calm is not something you earn by fixing the world outside. It is something you uncover by turning toward the world inside. This journey will not be about religion in the strict sense. It will not lecture you with strange words or heavy philosophy. It will simply invite you to pause, to breathe, and to see. Like a trusted friend walking beside you in the night, pointing out that the stars were always above you, whether you noticed them or not. So let us begin. Not with answers, but with a question. What if the life you dream of, the life of balance, of ease, of quiet strength, has been waiting within you all along? You wake before the sun because you must, not because you want to. The alarm rings, and your first thought is not gratitude for another day, but calculation. How many hours until the meeting? How much time before the children need to be ready? How many unread messages are waiting? Even before your body has fully risen, your mind is already sprinting. This is modern life for so many people, not just in one country, but across the globe. Yet in America, where productivity is celebrated almost as a religion, the pressure feels especially sharp. Work is not simply work. It is identity, it is survival, it is proof of worth. The day unfolds like a race you did not choose to run. Coffee becomes fuel, not enjoyment. Commutes blur into podcasts that you hardly hear because your mind is rehearsing the next conversation, the next pitch, the next apology. You arrive at the office or open your laptop at home, and suddenly the world demands everything at once. Emails, meetings, deadlines, notifications from apps designed to keep your attention hooked. You glance at the clock, and hours have vanished, yet the to-do list seems longer than before. Stress does not feel like a passing mood. It feels like the air itself. Your shoulders ache, your chest feels heavy, and sometimes you cannot tell if you are anxious, tired, or simply numb. Burnout is no longer a word reserved for exhausted doctors or overworked soldiers. It has become the silent anthem of office workers, parents, teachers, drivers, and students. It whispers that you must keep going, even when every fiber of your being begs for rest. You tell yourself, just one more week, one more project, one more promotion, and then you will slow down. But that promise keeps moving further away, like a horizon that retreats the closer you walk. You begin to wonder if the slowing down will ever arrive. At night, when you finally lie down, your mind refuses to lie with you. It replays conversations from the day. It invents arguments that never happened. It builds scenarios of tomorrow's failures before tomorrow has even begun. Sleep comes late and ends early, and even your dreams feel like extensions of the pressure you carry. And so another day begins, identical to the last, leaving you both drained and restless, tired but unable to rest. Deep inside, a quiet voice asks, is this really life? Is existence meant to be a cycle of stress, coffee, exhaustion, repeat? You might silence that voice by scrolling on your phone, by binge-watching shows, by buying things you do not need. But the question always returns. The truth is simple yet hard to face. Stress has become the water you swim in, so constant that you no longer notice you are drowning. And yet, what if the way out is not to swim faster, not to escape to a new ocean, but to realize that calm is already within you? We have been taught to chase peace like an achievement, as though it waits at the end of a perfect schedule, a perfect bank account, a perfect body. But look around. How many people have reached those things and still lie awake at night with restless minds? The deepest secret, whispered across centuries by those who understood the nature of the mind, is this: peace is not something you earn. It is not the reward for crossing a finish line. It is a return, a remembering of what has always been whole inside you. The source of calm is not outside. It is not in the silence of a distant retreat, nor in the approval of your boss, nor in the praise of strangers online. The true source of calm is already here, waiting behind the noise, behind the stories your mind tells again and again. Your mind is a storyteller, and often a cruel one. It takes the email from your manager and spins it into a narrative of failure. It takes the silence of a friend and twists it into a story of rejection. It takes tomorrow's uncertainty and paints it as disaster. These stories race through your thoughts until you believe them to be reality itself. But pause for a moment and notice. The stress is not only in the events, it is in the stories layered on top of them. A deadline is real, but the story that says, if I fail, I am worthless, is invented. A traffic jam is real, but the story that says, the world is against me, is invented. An email is real, but the story that says, my life will collapse because of this, is invented. These are not truths. They are passing storms of thought, loud and convincing, but fleeting. And here lies the doorway to peace. When you see the story for what it is, just a story, not the unshakable truth, you take back your freedom. You reclaim your ability to rest, even in the middle of a busy day. Imagine this. You are driving home after work. Traffic is thick. Horns blare. Your mind begins its usual pattern: irritation, anger, stories about wasted time. But instead of diving into the story, you notice it. You breathe. You watch the irritation rise, and instead of feeding it, you simply let it be. In that moment, the traffic has not changed, but you have. The car is still moving slowly, but your heart is no longer racing. You have remembered something essential. The event is not the problem. The story about the event is. When you recognize this, calm begins to return not as something you force, but as something that was always waiting. This does not mean you never feel stress again. Life will always bring challenges, deadlines, noise, responsibility. But the difference is profound. You stop believing that stress is the only possible response. You begin to see that another way is possible, a way where calm is your foundation and stress is only a passing wave. This is the first step of the journey, the first glimpse of freedom. Not escaping your life, not running away, but remembering that within you there is a place untouched by chaos. And from this place, you can meet the world with steady eyes, a clear mind, and a heart at rest. Stress does not disappear by wishing it away. You know this. You have tried the quick fixes, an extra cup of coffee, a weekend binge of television, an impulsive online purchase, or even a hurried vacation that feels more exhausting than restful. These things may dull the edge for a moment, but soon the familiar weight returns. The truth is, most of us are not only stressed by what happens to us, we are stressed by the way we fight against it. Picture yourself holding a rope, pulling against a heavy weight on the other side. Your arms tremble, your muscles ache, yet you keep pulling. You believe that if you hold on tightly enough, you will somehow win. But what if the rope is not tied to an opponent? What if it? If the rope is not tied to an opponent, what if it is tied to a wall? No amount of pulling will move it. The only way to find relief is to let go. In the same way, so much of the stress we carry is not from the tasks themselves, but from the grip of our resistance. A project is simply a project, but the thought, I must prove my worth through this, or I will fail as a person, transforms it into torment. A bill is simply a bill, but the thought, I will never catch up, my life is collapsing, turns it into a monster. These thoughts are ropes tied to walls. We pull and pull, exhausting ourselves, forgetting that the rope is optional. To notice the rope, to see the story beneath the stress, is to reclaim your freedom. The first step is awareness. Imagine you are sitting at your desk. Your heart is pounding, your chest is tight, your mind is racing through all the things you have not done. Instead of reacting automatically, pause. Take a breath. Notice what is actually happening. The body feels pressure. The mind is telling a story. The story may say, I cannot handle this. It is too much. But ask yourself gently, is this story absolute truth, or is it just a passing cloud? You may find, in that single moment of recognition, a small gap. In that gap is calm. Calm does not mean the work disappears. It means you are no longer drowning in the story of failure. You can do the task with a steadier mind, a lighter heart. Calm is the clear sky behind the clouds. The clouds of thought will come and go, but the sky remains. Another step is compassion. You are harsh with yourself, often far harsher than you would ever be with a friend. You miss a deadline and the inner voice shouts, you are worthless. You forget something small and the voice hisses, you always fail. Yet if your friend came to you with the same mistake, would you not comfort them? Would you not remind them of all the times they succeeded? What if you turned that same compassion inward? What if you spoke to yourself as kindly as you would to someone you love? Stress thrives on self-criticism. Calm grows from self-compassion. To practice this, try a simple experiment. The next time you make a mistake, pause and place a hand over your heart. Whisper to yourself, I am human. Humans forget. Humans learn. This does not define me. You may feel awkward at first, but slowly, the harsh inner critic begins to soften. You begin to breathe again. Stress loses its grip because you are no longer feeding it with cruelty. Instead, you are watering the seed of calm. Now consider the culture around you. You live in a society that celebrates being busy. To say, "I am overwhelmed," often sounds like a badge of honor, proof that you are important, that your life matters. But beneath the surface, this endless busyness is not a sign of meaning. It is often a sign of disconnection. You become so busy doing that you forget being. The paradox is clear. The more you chase peace outside through achievements, possessions, recognition, the further it seems to run. But the moment you stop chasing, the moment you simply sit and breathe, you notice it was always here. A monk once said, "You do not need to run after peace. You only need to stop running." Imagine again the rope. You have pulled so hard, for so long, that your hands are raw. The wall has not moved. What if you finally let go? At first, the silence may feel strange, even frightening. You are so used to the struggle that peace feels unfamiliar. But stay with it. Notice how the arms rest. Notice how the body breathes. This is what calm feels like when you stop resisting. It is not empty. It is alive. The world still moves. Life still brings challenges. But now you are not tangled in the rope of stories. You are standing freely, able to respond instead of react. This is the invitation of the true source of calm. Not to escape your life, not to destroy your ambitions, but to live from a steadier place within. In practical terms, this might begin with one small habit. Before opening your phone in the morning, take 3 breaths. Feel the air enter and leave your body. Notice the space between thoughts. Before answering an email, pause for 1 breath. Before rushing into traffic, pause for 1 breath. These pauses are like doorways. They lead you back to the calm within, again and again, until it becomes natural. And when you begin to live this way, something remarkable happens. The tasks are still there, but they no longer crush you. The deadlines remain, but they no longer define you. The traffic still clogs the roads, but it no longer clogs your heart. You begin to discover a strength deeper than stress, a peace that cannot be stolen by circumstance. This is not fantasy. It is a shift of perspective, a remembering of what has always been present. The true source of calm is not in fixing everything outside, but in uncovering the stillness inside. And once you taste it, even for a moment, you know it is real. You know you can return to it again and again, no matter how loud the world becomes. This is the gift waiting within you. This is the beginning of freedom. Loss is a word that hides 1,000 stories. The story of a worker who gave everything to a company and one morning found his position eliminated by a short email. The story of a woman who poured her heart into a relationship only to watch it dissolve without warning. The story of a child who grows up and drifts away, leaving parents with an empty house that echoes louder than any argument ever did. And of course, the most universal story of all, the loss of someone we love to the silent certainty of death. Each of these moments lands like a heavy stone on the heart. They pierce us with a sharp arrow of pain. No matter how strong we are, no matter how carefully we plan, life will always send these arrows. This is the first truth we often wish to deny. Suffering in its raw form is inevitable. To be alive is to be vulnerable to change, to disappointment, to endings. And yet, most of us do not stop at the first arrow. We shoot a second one ourselves. The first arrow may be a job loss, but the second is the voice that whispers, "I am worthless now. I will never recover." The first arrow may be heartbreak, but the second is the thought, "No one will ever love me again. I am broken." The first arrow may be grief, But the second is the endless cycle of questions. Why me? Why now? Why this? The pain of the first arrow is sharp, but the wound of the second arrow is far deeper, because it is inflicted not by life, but by our own minds. Think about the last time you faced loss. Perhaps a friendship ended. Perhaps you failed at something important. Perhaps you stood by a hospital bed and felt helpless. In that moment, the pain was real. Tears came, or anger, or numb silence. But what happened after? Did your mind replay the event 100 times, each time adding more weight? Did you imagine different outcomes, blame yourself, or resent the world? That is the second arrow, and it is optional. This is difficult to accept because the second arrow feels automatic. But the moment we begin to notice the difference between the inevitable pain of the first arrow and the optional suffering of the second, we take back a measure of freedom. Imagine a man walking in the rain. The rain itself is the first arrow unavoidable, a part of nature. But the second arrow is his inner shouting. Why is this happening? It always rains on me. Life is unfair. The rain continues either way. But one man soaks in bitterness, while another simply accepts he is wet. The first arrow is equal for both, but the second is created by the mind. Acceptance does not mean indifference. It does not mean pretending that loss does not hurt. When your heart breaks, let it break. When grief comes, let the tears flow. This is human, and it is honest. But acceptance means allowing the first arrow to be what it is without adding a storm of extra arrows. It means saying, yes, this hurts, without needing to build a tower of stories around it. This difference changes everything. Consider a mother whose grown son moves far away. The first arrow is the ache of absence, the empty chair at dinner. The second arrow could be the story. He left because I was not a good mother. He no longer cares. That second arrow is poison. But if she breathes and recognizes, he has his path. I love him still. The pain remains, but the suffering does not multiply. Or think of someone who loses a job. The first arrow is financial worry, the loss of routine. The second arrow is the story. I am a failure. My life is over. Yet in reality, many people have discovered that such moments became the doorway to new opportunities. The pain was real, but the endless suffering came only from the added story. The power of this teaching lies in its clarity. You cannot stop life from bringing arrows. Illness will come. Relationships will shift. Death will visit. But you can stop shooting the second arrow. You can stop turning pain into endless suffering. And you do this by awareness, by compassion, by remembering that thoughts are not truths. The first arrow is the body's cry. The second arrow is the mind's echo. When you begin to hear the echo for what it is, just an echo, you begin to walk lighter. You begin to see that freedom is not in controlling the world, but in meeting it without multiplying its arrows. You have felt the sting of the first arrow many times. You cannot avoid it because you are human. Someone you love says goodbye. A friend betrays your trust. A doctor speaks words that change your future, or life simply refuses to match your plan. The pain is real, immediate, and unavoidable. But after that first arrow comes the moment of choice. Do you allow the second arrow to take root? Most people do without knowing. They carry the pain into every corner of their day. A single harsh word from a colleague in the morning becomes a shadow over dinner with the family at night. A breakup that ended months ago still whispers every morning, convincing them they are unworthy of love. The event is long gone, but the second arrow remains alive, fed daily by the mind. Think of the story of a man in New York who lost his job during a wave of layoffs. The first arrow pierced deeply, rent was due. Bills piled up, fear of the unknown pressed heavily. But instead of letting the wound heal, he replayed the humiliation endlessly. They never valued me. I was a fool. My future is ruined. Weeks later, the company was forgotten by most, but he still carried its ghost. The second arrow had become heavier than the first. Or picture a woman in California whose partner ended their relationship. The first arrow was the silence of the empty apartment, the ache of missing laughter. But then came the second arrow. I am too difficult. I will be alone forever. Her mind turned a single event into a lifelong sentence. Yet the truth was simpler. One person chose a different path. The rest was story. How many times have you done the same? How many times have you taken the raw pain of life and wrapped it with layers of judgment, resentment, self-blame? Each layer is a second arrow. Each one deepens the wound. But here lies the extraordinary power you often forget. You can stop. You cannot stop the first arrow, but you can stop the second. This begins with noticing. The next time something painful happens, pause. Ask yourself, what is the first arrow? And what is the second? Perhaps your child speaks harshly to you. The first arrow is the sting of the words. The second arrow is the thought, I am a bad parent. They will never respect me. Perhaps you miss a promotion at work. The first arrow is disappointment. The second arrow is I am invisible. I will never succeed. Simply naming the arrows breaks the chain. Awareness itself is the first medicine. Then comes acceptance. Acceptance is not weakness. It is strength born of clarity. It is the courage to say, yes, this hurts, but it is part of being alive. When you accept the first arrow, you stop struggling against reality. You stop shouting at the rain for being wet. You begin to live in harmony with what is, instead of exhausting yourself with what should be. Imagine two friends caught in a sudden storm. One curses the sky, runs angrily, and arrives drenched and furious. The other shrugs, laughs, and feels the water on their skin. Both are wet. Only one suffers. That is the difference between the second arrow and acceptance. In practice, you can cultivate this skill through small steps. When you feel the first arrow, breathe. Name it. This is sadness. This is disappointment. This is grief. Let it be without adding stories. Place a hand on your heart if it helps. Remind yourself, this is the first arrow. The second arrow is optional. At first, the mind will resist. It will insist on telling its stories. But over time, with patience, the stories lose their power. You begin to feel the pain as it is sharp, real, but passing. You no longer chain it to your identity. You are no longer defined by it. Another powerful practice is compassion, both for yourself and for others. Remember, every person you meet is walking with their own arrows. The rude driver, the impatient cashier, the cold coworker, each is pierced by their own pain, seen or unseen. When you remember this, resentment softens. The second arrows you might have thrown at them, judgment, anger, are replaced with understanding. You choose not to multiply suffering, for them or for yourself. Over time, this becomes freedom. You realize you can live with pain without drowning in it. You can experience loss without being consumed. You can face life's unpredictability with a steadier heart. This does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop chaining yourself to unnecessary suffering. You discover that while pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. It changes the way you walk through the world. It gives you back a choice you did not know you had. The arrows will still come. Life will still bring its storms. But you will meet them differently, without resistance, without multiplying them into endless cycles. You will know the difference between the wound life gives and the wound you give yourself. And in that knowledge lies peace. The mind is rarely where the body is. Your body may be sitting at the dinner table, but your thoughts are still in the office. Your body may be lying in bed, but your thoughts are already running through tomorrow's meetings. This split is so common that you hardly notice it anymore. Yet, it is this endless tug of war between past and future that steals the joy of the present moment. Think of the countless times you replayed an old mistake. Perhaps you said the wrong thing in a meeting. Perhaps you missed an opportunity years ago. The event itself lasted seconds, maybe minutes, yet your mind has replayed it hundreds of times. Each replay feels as painful as the first, sometimes even worse. The past becomes a prison, and you are both the prisoner and the jailer, locking yourself in again and again. Or consider the future, that endless landscape of what-ifs. You worry about bills, about health, about your children, about things that may never happen. Your mind paints vivid pictures of disaster, losing your job, getting sick, being alone. The future becomes a shadow that follows you even in moments that should be peaceful. And so you live suspended between two heavy weights: regret for the past and anxiety for the future. Neither regret nor anxiety changes anything, yet they consume enormous energy. They leave you drained, distracted, unable to feel the life that is happening right now. Imagine someone walking through a beautiful garden, but their eyes are fixed on the ground behind them. They see only the footprints of where they have been. Or another person who walks with their gaze so far ahead that they miss every flower blooming at their feet. Both miss the garden itself. That is what life becomes when you live trapped in past and future. You miss the only place life truly exists, the present. Modern culture makes this worse. Phones buzz with reminders of what you forgot yesterday and warnings about what might happen tomorrow. Social media shows you highlights of the past you cannot return to and futures you cannot guarantee. You wake up and immediately scroll, already pulled out of the moment before the day has even begun. No wonder you feel restless, disconnected. Deep down, you know that life is slipping through your fingers, moment by moment, while you are busy rehearsing old scenes or imagining new ones. And yet, when you pause, even briefly, something remarkable happens. In a single conscious breath, the noise softens. For one heartbeat, you are not trapped in yesterday or tomorrow. You are simply here. The warmth of the coffee in your hand, the sound of a bird outside your window, the rise and fall of your own chest. Small details, often invisible, reveal themselves as tiny miracles. This is not denial. The past still happened. The future will still come. But when you anchor yourself in the present, you discover a sanctuary that regret cannot poison and anxiety cannot reach. This sanctuary is not far away. It is as close as your next breath. And yet, most people will live decades without ever stepping fully into it. They will live their lives always arriving, never arriving, always waiting for tomorrow, always dragging yesterday, never realizing that life is only ever lived in this one unrepeatable moment. The tragedy is not that the past hurts or the future is uncertain. The tragedy is that by being trapped in both, you miss the only place you could ever find peace. Right here, right now. There is an old story of a traveler chased by a wild beast. In his desperate run, he stumbles to the edge of a cliff. With no other choice, he climbs down, clinging to a vine. Above him, the beast waits, growling. Below him, sharp rocks promise certain death. And then he notices something small and unexpected, a ripe strawberry hanging nearby. With one hand still holding the vine, he reaches out, plucks the fruit, and tastes it. Sweetness floods his mouth. For a moment, he is not consumed by fear of the beast above or the rocks below. For a moment, he is alive, present, tasting life as it is. This story is not about ignoring danger. The beast is still above. The rocks are still below. But in that suspended instant, he experiences something profound, joy in the midst of uncertainty. This is the lesson of the strawberry. Happiness does not wait at the end of all problems solved. It exists in the ability to touch the present moment fully, even when circumstances are imperfect. How often do you miss the strawberries in your own life? Perhaps your child's laughter rings out, but you are too busy checking email. Perhaps sunlight touches your skin, but your mind is stuck replaying an argument. Perhaps food is on your plate, but you eat while scrolling headlines of disasters far away. The strawberries are everywhere moments of sweetness, warmth, connection, but you rarely taste them because your mind is always elsewhere. What if you made a different choice? What if you began to notice them, to savor them, even for just a breath? This is not naive. This is not pretending that beasts and rocks do not exist. Bills must be paid, health must be cared for, grief must be felt. But alongside all of that, there are still strawberries waiting for your attention. The practice is simple, though not always easy. Begin by pausing. Right now, take a breath. Feel the air enter your lungs. Notice the sensation without rushing to the next thought. That breath is a strawberry. When you drink water, actually taste it. When you hug someone, feel their warmth. Anger is heavy, though you cannot see it. Resentment weighs more than stone, though you cannot touch it. Every day, people carry these invisible burdens without realizing how much they bend the spine and exhaust the heart. Think of a morning commute. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and a flash of anger ignites. Hours later, you are still replaying it, still muttering under your breath as if the moment were happening again. The other driver is long gone, but you carry them with you into work, into meetings, into conversations with people who had nothing to do with it. Or imagine a small insult from a colleague, a careless comment, a dismissive tone. On the surface, it lasted seconds, but inside, you cradle it, feed it, return to it again and again. By the end of the week, it has grown into a story. They do not respect me. No one appreciates me. I am always overlooked. A single sentence becomes a chain around your chest. Even in families, anger lingers like smoke after fire. A parent says something in frustration. A partner forgets a promise. A sibling makes a careless joke. Instead of letting the moment pass, you hold it tightly. You rehearse the argument, building your case, preparing words you may never speak. The argument becomes heavier than the event itself. The past is gone, but you keep carrying its ashes, and those ashes stain every new moment. Over time, the body remembers what the mind refuses to release. Shoulders tense, jaws clench, sleep grows shallow, patience shortens. Doctors speak of stress, of inflammation, of illness, but often the deeper root is unacknowledged anger held for too long. It is not the traffic, the insult, the broken promise that destroys peace. It is the refusal to set them down. Modern life multiplies this weight. News headlines fuel outrage. Social media magnifies every disagreement. You are invited to be angry all the time about politics, about strangers, about people you will never meet. And while anger may burn hot for a moment, it leaves behind fatigue, bitterness, emptiness. Like carrying a bag of rocks each day, you grow accustomed to the weight. You forget what it feels like to walk freely. Yet you notice it in small ways. Snapping at a child for something minor, feeling exhausted without reason, dreading interactions that should be simple. Anger distorts perception. It convinces you that the world is against you, that people are enemies, that life is unfair. But often, it is not the world that is heavy. It is the stories you are carrying. Imagine yourself holding a cup of water. At first, it feels light, but hold it for an hour, and your arm aches. Hold it for a day, and the pain becomes unbearable. The weight of the water has not changed. What changed is the time you insisted on holding it. The same is true with anger. A single slight may be light, but carried for days, months, years, it becomes unbearable. And still, many choose to carry it, believing that letting go means weakness, or forgetting, or forgiving someone who does not deserve forgiveness. They believe anger protects them, that it gives them power. But in truth, anger imprisons the one who holds it. The person who hurt you may not even remember, but you remember every detail. You are the one awake at night. You are the one rehearsing conversations in the shower. You are the one drained by a burden they no longer feel. This is the tragedy of anger. It punishes the one who carries it more than the one who caused it. Day after day, people walk through life carrying invisible weights. They wonder why they are so tired, why joy feels far away, why every small irritation feels like an explosion. They do not realize their arms are full of old stones, their hearts crowded with ghosts of arguments long past. The burdens are not visible, but they are real. And until you recognize them, you cannot lay them down. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with rocks. Each rock represents an insult, a betrayal, a disappointment you refuse to release. At first, the load feels manageable, but as the years pass, the weight grows unbearable. Every step becomes harder, every breath more shallow. Yet many people walk through life like this, unaware that the burden is not chained to their back, but strapped by choice. They could put it down, but they do not, because the mind whispers, "If I hold this anger, I am protecting myself. If I cling to this resentment, I am proving I was wronged." But in truth, clinging is not protection. It is self-inflicted pain. There is an old teaching that says holding anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent to throw it at someone else. But you are the one who gets burned. Think of the countless times you replayed an argument in your head. You repeated every word, polished every response, but the other person was not there to hear it. The only one reliving the hurt was you. Or recall how you carried bitterness from one relationship into the next, judging someone new through the lens of old wounds. The past offender has moved on, but you remain shackled. What if freedom is not in winning the argument or receiving an apology, but in setting the coal down? Letting go does not erase the wrong. It does not excuse harm or deny injustice. It simply releases you from the endless cycle of burning yourself again and again. The gift of letting go is not for them. It is for you. Consider the driver who cuts you off in traffic. If you accept the moment and let it pass, the irritation lasts seconds. But if you clutch it, replaying it all day, you allow a stranger to occupy your mind and poison your peace. Which is true strength, clinging or releasing? Or picture a coworker who dismisses your ideas. You can nurture that slight until it poisons the entire workplace. Or you can breathe, acknowledge the sting, and choose not to carry it home. In doing so, you protect your evening, your family, your sleep. Anger is not a gift you owe to anyone. It is a burden you can choose not to accept. When someone offers you a toxic gift, the wisest act is to decline. Imagine a person holding out a package of venom. If you refuse to take it, it remains theirs, not yours. In the same way, when someone speaks with cruelty or acts unjustly, you have a choice. Take their poison into your heart, or leave it where it belongs. This is not easy. The mind demands justice. It wants repayment, acknowledgement, victory. But often, chasing these demands only multiplies pain. True justice, in the deepest sense, is freeing yourself from the control of anger. It is reclaiming the energy wasted on rehearsing battles that will never be fought. The practice of putting down the invisible burden begins with awareness. Ask yourself, what am I carrying that no longer serves me? Is it a memory of childhood unfairness? Is it bitterness toward a former partner? Is it frustration with a parent? a boss, a neighbor. Picture it as a rock in your backpack. Feel its weight. Then ask, what would happen if I set this down? At first, fear may arise. Anger has been your companion for so long that you mistake it for identity. Without it, who are you? But stay with the question. Notice the lightness that appears when you even imagine releasing it. Freedom always feels lighter than chains. Another step is compassion, not necessarily for the one who wronged you, though that may come in time, but for yourself. Speak gently inward. I deserve peace. I deserve rest. I do not need to carry this anymore. With each breath, loosen your grip. With each day, choose not to pick the burden up again. Slowly, the weight lessens. Life begins to feel less crowded, less heavy. You laugh more easily, sleep more deeply, love more freely. This is the reward of putting down the invisible burden, the return of your own life. Remember, you cannot control the actions of others. People will still disappoint, offend, and betray. The world will still contain injustice and cruelty. But you can control whether you carry their poison within you. You can refuse the coal, refuse the venom, refuse the rock. In doing so, you walk lighter. You move freer. You taste peace not because the world is perfect, but because you chose not to chain yourself to its imperfections. And that choice is always available right now, in this very breath. Asterisk, we live in an age of information, yet so many feel more lost than ever. Every day you are flooded with news, opinions, theories, arguments, endless streams of content flowing through your phone and computer. The moment you open your eyes, the world is already shouting at you what to believe, what to fear, what to buy, what to desire. Instead of clarity, this torrent often leaves you more confused, more anxious, more divided from yourself. Knowledge is valuable, but the way it piles up in the modern mind often turns into noise. You read one article, then another that contradicts it. You listen to one voice, then another that mocks it. You scroll through social media and see endless declarations, each person convinced they are right, each insisting their view is the truth. Soon you are not only carrying your own thoughts, but also the borrowed anxieties of strangers. The weight is overwhelming. Beneath this flood lies another struggle, the ego's hunger to be right. You feel pressure not only to know, but to defend what you know, to build an identity out of opinions, achievements, labels. You say, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is the side I stand on. The more tightly you cling to these labels, the more fragile you become, because every challenge to your belief feels like a challenge to your worth. Arguments online turn into battles for identity. Disagreements with friends or family feel like threats to survival. The more you hold on, the heavier it feels. Many people think accumulation is the path to wisdom. They believe that the more books they read, the more podcasts they consume, the more theories they can recite, the closer they are to truth. But often the opposite happens. The vessel of the mind becomes so full crammed with facts, judgments, expectations that there is no room left for silence, for humility, for fresh understanding. Think of a cup filled to the brim. No matter how precious the water you try to pour into it, nothing enters. It spills, wasted, because the cup is already overflowing. In the same way, when your mind is stuffed with fixed opinions and rigid knowledge, no new insight can enter. This is why so many people feel stuck despite all they have learned. They know more than ever, yet they understand less. They are louder in debate, but quieter in peace. They carry information, but lack wisdom. And all of this creates exhaustion. The constant comparison on social media, who knows more, who achieved more, who speaks louder feeds a cycle of inadequacy. You may feel that no matter how much you learn or accomplish, it is never enough. your mind becomes a crowded room with no space to rest. Have you noticed how rarely silence appears in your life? The television hums, notifications buzz, podcasts play, music streams, voices argue. Even when external noise stops, internal chatter continues. The mind comments on everything, judges everything, builds stories about everything. It never stops talking. This endless commentary is the ego's way of reinforcing itself. It says, I think, therefore I am. I judge, therefore I exist. But underneath all the noise, there is a deeper you, quiet, spacious, open, waiting to be heard. The tragedy is that most people never hear it because the noise is too constant, the vessel too full. This is the pain of our age, to drown in information and still feel starved of wisdom, to be surrounded by voices and still feel unheard, to collect opinions but lose peace. You may feel that the solution is to consume even more, to study harder, to win more arguments. But often the true solution is the opposite, to empty, to quiet, to release. Before you can discover the openness of the empty vessel, you must first see clearly the cost of being overfilled. Only then will you be ready to put some of it down. Picture a cup already full. No matter how pure or refreshing the water you try to pour, nothing can enter. It overflows, wasted, because there is no space left inside. In the same way, when your mind is crammed with fixed opinions, judgments, and endless information, it cannot receive new insight. The vessel must first be emptied to be useful. This is the paradox of wisdom. It is not gained by adding more, but by clearing space. The openness of the empty vessel is not ignorance. It is readiness. It is the humility to admit, perhaps I do not know. Perhaps there is another way to see. From this humility comes clarity deeper than any fact memorized or argument won. Imagine a mirror covered in dust. For years, you keep adding new layers, dust of opinions, dust of judgments, dust of assumptions. You believe that if you add enough, you will finally see clearly. But the opposite is true. The more you add, the less reflection appears. The path to clarity is not addition, but removal. Slowly, gently, you wipe away what does not serve, and the mirror reveals what was always there, the simple, luminous truth. To live as an empty vessel does not mean abandoning knowledge or denying experience. It means approaching each moment with the openness of a beginner. A beginner does not pretend to know. A beginner listens. A beginner notices details that the expert, confident in their certainty, overlooks. When you meet life this way, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. A simple walk reveals colors you never noticed. A conversation opens insights because you are not busy defending your viewpoint. A moment of silence feels rich instead of empty because you are not filling it with noise. In modern life, being an empty vessel is radical. The world encourages you to broadcast, to declare, to take sides quickly and loudly. But wisdom often comes not from speaking, but from listening. Not from declaring certainty, but from resting in openness. Think of a time you were absolutely sure, only to discover later you were mistaken. At first, embarrassment may have burned, but then came freedom. You realized that being wrong is not the end. It is the doorway to deeper understanding. Each time you allow yourself to be emptied of rigid certainty, you make room for truth to surprise you. The empty vessel is also light. When you stop carrying the need to prove yourself, the need to defend every belief, the need to appear knowledgeable, you feel a relief that no achievement can match. Life becomes less about performing and more about experiencing. The burden of ego slips away, and in its place, spaciousness arises. This spaciousness is fertile ground. Into it flows creativity, compassion, and genuine connection. You are no longer so busy projecting yourself that you miss the humanity of others. You listen not to reply, but to understand. You learn not to accumulate, but to transform. You love not to possess, but to be present. Such openness does not make you naive. It makes you wise. A vessel that is empty can receive water, tea, wine, whatever is needed. In the same way, a mind that is open can meet each situation freshly, without being trapped by past conclusions. This flexibility is the heart of resilience. Life will continue to change. Old beliefs will be challenged. Unexpected events will arrive. The rigid mind snaps under pressure, but the open mind bends, flows, adapts. This is why emptiness is not weakness. It is strength of the deepest kind. So how do you practice becoming an empty vessel? Begin with silence. Each day, set aside even a few minutes without input, no screens, no books, no conversations. Simply sit. At first, the chatter of the mind will be loud. Thoughts will rush in, demanding attention. But slowly, like sediment settling in water, the noise quiets. You begin to notice space. Into this space, insight flows naturally, without effort. Next, practice humility in conversation. Instead of preparing your response while the other person speaks, pause and truly listen. Ask yourself, what can I learn here? What perspective have I not considered? Each time you listen without rushing to defend, you empty a little more of the vessel, making room for something new. Finally, release the need to be certain. Certainty feels safe, but it often blinds you. Allow yourself to say, I do not know. These 3 words are not weakness. They are courage. They open doors where walls once stood. In them lies the freedom to explore, to discover, to grow. When you live as an empty vessel, you discover that truth was never hidden. It was always here, in the ordinary miracle of awareness itself. You do not need to climb to the highest mountain or read the thickest book. You only need to empty, to open, to receive. And in that openness, life reveals itself as luminous, whole, and deeply alive. You have walked a long road through these pages, a journey that began in the noise of modern life and now arrives in the quiet recognition of what has always been within you. Along the way, you have faced the reality of stress, the endless treadmill of work and exhaustion that leaves so many drained before the day has even begun. You have seen that true calm is not something to be hunted down outside of yourself, but something already alive in the spaces between thoughts, waiting to be noticed the moment you stop running. You have met the truth of loss and the pain of disappointment, the sharp arrows that life inevitably delivers, and you have learned to recognize the difference between the wounds you cannot avoid and the suffering you add by choice. This distinction is not small. It is the opening to freedom. By refusing to fire the second arrow, you protect yourself from becoming your own greatest enemy. You have seen how the mind clings to the past and fears the future, leaving you absent from the only place life truly happens. You have tasted the sweetness of the present strawberry, that small miracle that can bloom even in the middle of chaos, reminding you that joy is not reserved for perfect circumstances, but is available here now, in the simplest of things. Asterisk, you have faced the collapse of plans and the unpredictability of existence, the storms that no amount of control can prevent, and you have discovered the grace of meeting life with the words, "We'll see." In those words lies humility, trust, and the patience to let the full story unfold before declaring anything final. You have carried the invisible burdens of anger and resentment, the hot coals that burn only the one who holds them, and you have learned the power of setting them down. To decline the toxic gifts of others, to refuse to let bitterness dictate your days, is not weakness, but strength, the strength of someone who values peace more than the illusion of revenge. And finally, you have come to the crowded vessel of the modern mind, overflowing with information, opinions, and ego. You have seen how fullness can be a kind of blindness and how emptiness can be the beginning of wisdom. The openness of the empty vessel is not ignorance, but the fertile space where true understanding blossoms. Each of these lessons points in the same direction. Peace does not wait for you in the distance. It is not hiding in a promotion, a perfect partner, or a flawless future. It is already here, already yours, discovered each time you pause, notice, release, and open. This is the quiet revolution available to you in every breath. And yet, perhaps a question still lingers. How do you carry this into the real, messy world of bills, arguments, deadlines, and grief? The answer is simple, though not easy. You practice. You practice in the small moments, because life is made of small moments. Before you answer the phone, breathe once with awareness. Before you respond in anger, pause and ask, am I about to fire the second arrow? Before you scroll endlessly, lift your eyes and notice something present. A sound, a color, a sensation of breath. These are not grand gestures. They are seeds. Each seed planted grows into a habit, and habits grow into character, and character shapes the quality of your life. In time, you discover that calm is not a fragile state that disappears with the first challenge, but a steady foundation that holds you even when storms arrive. You begin to trust yourself, not because you control everything, but because you no longer need to. You can let life be life, with all its twists, without being torn apart. You can let others be as they are, without carrying their burdens as your own. You can let the past rest where it belongs, and let the future come in its own time, while you live fully in the only reality that has ever existed, this moment. Perhaps you still feel doubt. Perhaps you wonder if such a way of being is truly possible in a world so loud, so demanding. But look back at the journey you have taken here. Notice how many times you nodded in recognition, how many times the stories and images mirrored your own life. That recognition is not coincidence. It is the quiet truth inside you, reminding you of what you already know. You have always known that running faster will not bring peace. You have always known that clinging to anger burns you most. You have always known that no amount of certainty can shield you from life's unpredictability. And you have always known, even if faintly, that joy is waiting in the present moment like a ripe strawberry, needing only your attention to be tasted. What you know now is that this is not just philosophy. It is practice. It is a way of living, available in the smallest choices, available right now. You do not need to retreat to a monastery or renounce the world. You do not need to wait until you are free of responsibilities or until the stars align perfectly. You can begin today, where you are, with what you have. Take one conscious breath. Set down one invisible burden. Whisper, "We'll see," instead of collapsing into despair. Taste one strawberry moment. Each act is small, but together they transform the way you experience life. This is not about becoming someone different. It is about remembering who you already are beneath the noise, the stories, the defenses. You are not your stress. You are not your failures. You are not your anger, your fears, your endless striving. You are the awareness that notices them. You are the space in which they rise and fall. And in that space, there is a peace that cannot be broken. Imagine yourself at the end of a long day. You sit quietly, no phone, no television, just the sound of your own breath. At first, restlessness stirs, the mind clamors for distraction. But then, slowly, like waves settling, stillness spreads. In that stillness, you notice something profound. You are okay. Not perfect, not without problems, but okay. You are alive. You are breathing. You are here. This moment, simple and ordinary, holds everything you were chasing elsewhere. And once you recognize this, you cannot lose it. You may forget, you may drift, but you can always return. The path back is as close as your next breath. This is the gift of the journey you have walked. The realization that peace is not a faraway dream, but a present reality. All it asks is your attention. All it asks is your willingness to let go of what does not serve and to open to what has always been. So as this journey closes, a new one begins the journey of your own life, lived not in constant struggle, but in gentle awareness. May you remember the lessons of the arrows, the sweetness of the strawberry, the grace of we'll see, the freedom of putting down burdens, the openness of the empty vessel. May you carry them not as heavy doctrines, but as light companions, guiding you quietly in the moments that matter most. And when life grows loud again, as it surely will, may you pause long enough to hear the whisper within. Peace is here. Peace has always been here, and peace will be here as long as you remember to look.